I'm Daniel. My parents passed away in a car accident during the winter of my 3rd year of junior high. At that time, my younger brother John had just entered elementary school and couldn't do much without someone's help. Our relatives weren't unkind people, and they mourned our misfortune with us. However, all their households had circumstances that made it impossible for them to take in both a 15-year-old and 7-year-old child. Essentially, we had no one to rely on. So, although I had plans to go to high school, I decided to give that up. Instead, I began working as a construction worker at a local construction company from the spring. While my classmates were attending high school and enjoying their youth, I had to work from morning till evening, sweating it out. It was tough, and people around me who didn't know my situation suspected poor academic ability or bad conduct, which sometimes made me feel miserable. But watching over and raising my little brother was much more important. I didn't want him to feel lonely, and I wanted him to live as normally as possible. Therefore, I worked my tail off every day, doing house chores even though I wasn't used to it, and helping him with his studies at night, spending all my time raising him. Perhaps, thanks to that, he grew up to be a studious and hard-working young man, progressing smoothly from middle school to high school, then to university, and eventually getting a job. Intelligent and hard-working, he is the pride of my life. When John went to college, a relative who helped him financially said, "It's because of you, Daniel, your hard work, that John grew up so straight." I was prouder than ever. One day, my adorable younger brother brought his girlfriend home. She was the daughter of a large company. She certainly had good manners and seemed smart. I wouldn't use the term a mismatch in social status nowadays, but considering our family circumstances, the relationship between him and her felt exactly like that. Though he was clearly smitten, I found myself quite intimidated by her refined aura. Moreover, we never had much female company in our house, so I had zero experience entertaining women, which made me very nervous. Despite the nerves on my part, it seemed to have been worth it. His girlfriend showed appreciation for our hospitality, and she treated me kindly, acknowledging me as her boyfriend's brother. I envied him for having such a wonderful person as his future wife. I wanted them to be absolutely happy, so I wanted to cherish my sister-in-law as much as him, at least at first. Since then, John's girlfriend has come to my house several times. Although she seemed uncomfortable in our small house, she behaved cheerfully most of the time. I was happy to think that she was getting used to our house. As if to validate that feeling, when it was decided that he and she were to get married, I felt even more relieved and delighted. However, it was a Sunday, just about a week before the wedding ceremony. Though I had the day off and was taking it easy at home, I received a call on my cell phone from John's girlfriend. Even though it was only over the phone, her voice sounded very different from when she was with him, and she sounded upset. "Brother-in-law, about John's and my wedding next week. Could you not attend?" "What do you mean?" I asked, surprised, but she continued without paying attention. "Well, you see, my family has a fair bit of stature. I can understand John being there because he's brilliant and handsome regardless of his background. But for someone like you, Daniel, who lacks educational and professional credentials, to be part of our family is a bit troubling, let's say. It's not just about me. I can't put my parents through the embarrassment or discomfort." She spoke clearly, not mincing words. John had told me that he liked her straightforward personality, but to me, it was just cruel. "I understand that legally you can't sever the ties of brotherhood, so I'll give up on that. But at the very least, I would like to pretend you don't exist. All I'm asking is for you to not attend the wedding and not be present at family gatherings. Can you do that, for the sake of John's and my bright future?" Regardless of how she feels, when she says it's for his bright future, I can't deny her words. After all, I've lived my life up until now for his happiness. I can't go against that policy at this point, even if that meant I couldn't be present on his big day. "I understand your point. I too have lived long enough, and it's not like I haven't been told about my lack of education and career credentials. If my absence will be beneficial for John and you, I will not attend the ceremony. Is that okay? Yes, I really appreciate it. As soon as I confirmed my absence, her mood seemed to brighten, and she said goodbye in the cheerful voice I was familiar with, and hung up the phone. After the call, I felt a wave of exhaustion and ended up slumping on the floor. Even though I said all that, it doesn't mean that I'm not upset. Rather, the fact that someone who is going to be family, his wife, thinks of me in such a way is sad. What's most painful is not being able to attend his wedding. I wanted to take our parents' portraits there and celebrate with the four of us as a family. But I can't deny it. The truth is, my academic abilities are not strong, and my employment history is not something to be proud of. It was my own decision to give up on pursuing a higher education, so the one to blame is actually me. I'm the one dampening his new beginning. I'm the one casting a shadow over his important milestone. As I fell into deep self-loathing, I spent the day feeling depressed. After being in a daze all day, unable to focus on anything, he returned home after finishing work. While having dinner, he shared various things with me about the wedding reception, honeymoon, and their future life. However, due to what he had said earlier, I found it difficult to come up with a witty response or engage in a meaningful conversation. "Daniel, what's wrong? Are you feeling ill?" John looked at me worriedly, but I didn't know how to respond. I'm not particularly bright, and I'm bad at lying. So, in times like these, I usually speak up, but I don't want to say anything bad about the woman who is about to become his wife. However, if he were to say the same thing as her, then I could accept it. I could bear to graciously decline attending the wedding. Afterwards, realizing the importance of my relationship with him, I mustered the courage to be honest and share all my feelings and thoughts, even though I knew it might make him dislike me. "Your girlfriend told me, someone who can't exactly boast a life to be proud of, not to attend your wedding," she said. "If you feel the same way, just tell me outright. The most painful thing for me is to be a burden to you. If you don't want me to attend, I'll gladly comply." And then, with a voice seething with anger from the core of his being, he said this to me. "You really think I would say something like that? There's no way I could think something so cruel about the only family I have." Roaring those words, John calmed down a bit. Then, with a look as if he just thought of something, he said to me, "Daniel, how about not coming to the wedding just as she said? Please, I'd like you to wait for me at home. Is that okay?" "Wait, what do you mean?" The words were quite shocking, but I understood from John's subsequent words that there was some thought behind it. "There's no need to show up to a celebration involving someone who says terrible things, Daniel." On the wedding day, although I was told not to come, I was still worried. To my brother, I'm the only person he can call family. I couldn't help but worry if there were any issues or disputes during the family gathering. So I got dressed in my brother's suit and secretly went to the venue, but it was strangely quiet at my younger brother's place. I approached one of the staff members who seemed troubled, wondering what was happening, and asked, "Sorry for being late, but how far has the ceremony progressed?" The staff member replied, "We can't start the ceremony because none of your groom's family has arrived yet." "What?" I was led to John's dressing room and asked him, "John, our uncles haven't arrived?" "Daniel, that's right. I told them not to come." "Why did you suddenly say not to come?" "If I told our uncles and aunts what you've been told, they'd say, well, we're the shameful relatives who couldn't help when you needed. So we won't attend the ceremony. That's why nobody's coming today. I just thought I'd eat the food and go back. It's a waste otherwise." That's completely outrageous. I can't hide myself shaking up. Why would the entire family go to such lengths to make things difficult? It was supposed to be a day of celebration for you. What could have possibly led them to such a decision? Seeing my silence, John reassured me by saying, "I loved her, but I can't forgive her for what she said to you. My pride. Uncles in our family feel the same way. If she can't consider you as family, I can't be part of hers. I'm thinking of breaking off the engagement." Just as John finished speaking, a woman burst into the room. John's girlfriend was in her bridal gown. "How long are you going to keep me waiting? We're already past the start time." To the agitated her, John replied calmly, "At the very least, none of my family will be coming. Daniel here didn't come for this wedding. He's just here to see me. Let's just have our meal and call it a day. As for you and me, we can't get married. I'd like to say this engagement never happened." "That's impossible. You can't just cancel the wedding at the last minute like this." John's response to his girlfriend, whose face turned red with embarrassment and anger, was cold. "You seem to have said some pretty terrible things to him. Remember the family issues we discussed before? Knowing all that, you decided to say something that would upset him, and while I wasn't around at that, I was pretty surprised at first how low you could stoop, but then I realized you're exactly the type to do something like this. You only see people based on their achievements, don't you? Unfortunately, I'm also what you'd call a failure raised by another failure, so I can't marry a woman who doesn't care about my family." She burst into tears. "I'm just telling the truth. I can't introduce a family where the husband's family consists of only high school dropouts working in construction. How shameful." I asked myself if I could remain silent after being talked to like that. John defended me and sided with me, and if I kept my silence, it would make him look foolish. This was an issue between her and me. While she might be right, I have lived my life doing my best. It hurts when someone who knows nothing about me looks down on me. Yes, I might not be the brightest, and I have no prestigious credentials, but even without such things, I have lived my life strongly to protect my precious family. You have no right to deny my way of life." With her hysterical crying and my loud voice, her family and the venue staff began to gather. Inadvertently, everyone heard her offensive words. Her parents, figuring out what was happening through her words, began to bow their heads to my brother and me. "And here I thought you finally found a man to marry, and you start saying such things. I thought I could finally relax, thinking you were going to move out." Her father, his head in his hands, scolded her. "We deeply apologize. It's partly our fault for spoiling her too much. We sincerely apologize and hope you can forgive her." Her mother, despite wearing a beautiful dress, was making a shame-faced, apologetic expression and bowing to my brother and me. Even her friends who were attending the wedding seemed to have had enough of her offensive remarks about the groom's family. No one came to her defense or interfered. The attendees just stared at her in disbelief. Even she, usually so glib, was left speechless. Perhaps she finally realized the reactions her words were causing, or maybe she finally understood the disastrous situation she had created. "I was 7 when our parents died," John began. "My older brother, who started working as soon as he finished middle school, has been sacrificing so much for me. His life isn't something that just anyone can emulate, and even if I was in the same position, I don't think I could have done it. Even if one has a good education, it doesn't guarantee they can live that way. I knew this even when I was 7, but you couldn't understand that. You're less mature than a 7-year-old. I can't marry a child, and I don't want to. So I'm breaking off our engagement. I don't want to see you anymore." After saying this, John apologized to her parents for the abrupt cancellation and then to the staff. Though he had apologized very respectfully and humbly, it was also a clear statement that he had no intention of changing his stance. She, who ruined one of life's biggest turning points, her wedding, through her own actions, stared blankly at the aftermath. "You have a family who scolds and protects you in times like these, right? My younger brother, too, when he heard about our phone call, was angrier than me. While educational background and work history are certainly important, for me, he is far more important than any of those things. So, knowing he outright refused to marry someone like you, I'm a little relieved now." She cried again. It was probably the only thing she could do. And so, the wedding ceremony was canceled before it could even begin. Afterward, John really did break off the engagement with her. Since they hadn't submitted their marriage license yet, there were no procedures to be taken care of, and he quickly cut ties with her. Later, some attendee disseminated photos of the scene online, and it seems that she and her family lost their standing at work because of this. She probably won't be able to date or marry for a while. It's probably a good medicine for her who was so arrogant. John says that she took care of the entire cost of the wedding cancellation. Of course, it's only right, since she was the one who caused this mess, and we, the victims, don't need to worry about it. I'm grateful to him. I don't know anyone else who would get so angry for me. Not just because we're family, but because he respects me as a person, and although this isn't the ideal circumstance, I got to learn this again. After this incident, it feels like our bond as brothers has deepened even more. I'm really proud of John, whom I've raised with care even though we don't have parents, for growing into such a fine person. Encouraged by him, I started studying for my high school equivalency exam, something I'd been contemplating for a while. A year later, I passed the exam and switched jobs. It's a completely different field from what I was doing, but learning something new is fun. While working hard, I got my first girlfriend. Of course, she's a woman who values me and my precious family. I plan to invite her over and introduce her to John soon. I want to brag about my wonderful younger brother.